The topic of this video is on increasing and decreasing and where that's happening within a function. And so when you take a look at it at a graph, remember that if the graph is moving up, and we read a graph from left to right. So when you start reading this graph, we would start on this side and move our way to the right. And so if you were to trace that graph, if your pencil or hand or whatever finger would move down, then the graph is decreasing. And if your pencil or pen would move up, then it is increasing. And then we'd write the interval, the x values. So we're only looking at these values right here and beyond where that's happening. So I highly recommend highlighting. I think it's super helpful when you highlight where those things are happening. So the first part where I think that something is happening, where it's, I would say, decreasing, my pen moved down, would be in that interval. And I think, again, it moves down again starting here and moves down there. And then if I were to switch colors, I would say that it's going in the opposite direction here and all the way up here. And with the arrow, that implies that it keeps going off this graph. So in the orange section, I would say that this function is decreasing. And in the green section, I would say this function is increasing. So again, how would we write that? Don't worry about which y values it's moving towards. Think about more the x values, these values down here where it's happening. So you could say that up until this point, and this section over here, in this boxed area and beyond, is where this is decreasing. So we would represent this and beyond as negative infinity up until this x value. So I would say this is decreasing from negative infinity to -1. The next section where I think something is changing or happening is between these two lines right here. This is where that green highlighted section is at. So I would say the green is increasing from -1 to 0. And notice that I'm using these parentheses to describe the movement from one place to the other. I switch back to green. I go to the other color here. I'm going back to this section right here. So it is orange between these two x values. So I would say it is also decreasing from 0 to 1. And then it becomes green, again, if I'm representing this from this point right here and beyond, because this graph keeps going past this point. So I would say that from 1 to infinity in the x values, this is the infinity beyond, right? This is going on the x-axis forever, but that's going towards infinity. So that's how you would kind of segment that graph. And then we would connect these with a U, which means and. This means and in math. So you would say this graph is increasing from -1 to 0, from here to here, and from 1 to infinity, etc. Okay? So in class we did practice problems, and I just wanted to do 2 more with you, and then I was going to show you the answers for the others for you to try on your own. So I use purple and yellow here to describe increasing and decreasing, but I would say this function is increasing when it's in yellow. So again, if I were to use that change in color to describe it, I would say that this is all yellow on this side, and remember, this beyond is represented by negative infinity. So I said this is definitely increasing from negative infinity until this x value, which is 2. And then I said this function is decreasing starting at 2 and moving its way this way. So from 2 to infinity. And the graph beside it, I think there's multiple places where increase is happening, but remember, we have to skip over these asymptotes. So we have to show, because it's discontinuous there. So I would say this is increasing. The first section is right here, and it's going this way forever. So I would say negative infinity to -2. And then it picks up on the other side of -2. Oh, I'm sorry, that is definitely not -2, that is -1. So it picks up on the other side of -1, and it increases all the way until 0. So those would be my 2 increasing, and my decreasing intervals would be, it starts at 0 and it starts to move down. So from 0 to 1, that's when I get to the asymptote. And then when I start on the other side of the asymptote and I move in this direction forever, I'm going from 1 to infinity. So I'm going to show you the others. I'd like you to give those a try, but then you can double check that you are on the right track. This is the first characteristic that you would have to be able to describe, which is increasing and decreasing. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out or come and work with me so that we can find a way to make sense of this concept.